Nice to be here. Good evening, Sint Maarten. My name is Charlemagne. I'm candidate number 19 on the URSM party. And I'm here today to talk a bit with my colleagues and with you especially, Sint Maarten. Just want you to know my passion is hospitality and tourism. And that's what gets me going.
Yes, of course. And somebody that's been in the field for many years,
47 years in total.
Correct.
Now more into teaching, but veteran from about 35, 40 years.
So we'll definitely touch more on to that as well. Yeah. Next to me, we have Miss Felicia Brooks, dynamic, young, aspiring politician, and I think such a great mind to have on board as well. So it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. Good night, good evening to everybody listening. Thank you for joining us. My name is Felicia Brooks, and I'm candidate number 12 with the URSM. And what I am passionate about is the development of our youth and young people on Sint Maarten and the increasing of opportunities for different jobs and career options on the island.
Wow, very nice. Definitely a lot of knowledge sitting on this table with us this evening as well. And it just shows the community out there as well what URSM is all about as well. Mm-hmm. That we want to include, and we're a party of inclusion, and we want to include all kind of facets of our island and bring them together, and use it to the best of our capability to get the most out of it that can benefit Sint Maarten to the best, So welcome. It's a pleasure having you guys here. So I would like to start with you, Felicia. You said you have some ideas, especially when it pertains to the youth. I think that's one of the hot topics that is talked about these days as well, that especially election time, everybody seems to be youth-oriented, But I know you've been that way from all. I think that's all and that's really something that you focus on, and your passion is that, So we get the reality of what's really happening.
Mm-hmm. For me, my entry into the URSM was about youth and development for young people. That's what I came in to work on. And that's what I've always continued to think about. So when it comes to what I would like to see, it's really down to an opening up of Sint Maarten's economy that allows for different things to come to the forefront. We have our very important industry of tourism, as we're going to speak about, and how that is vital to the livelihood of Sint Maarten.
Right.
And it's something I think that we can be proud of, that people desire to come to our island to experience it. What I want is to make sure that our entire population, but focusing on our youth and young people, benefit from those things. I want to make sure that as we, seek to continue to develop Sint Maarten, that we do it in a sustainable way that ensures that our people are centered. Because sometimes I think we can forget that the people in our communities are an important stakeholder when it comes to tourism or any other efforts that we do on the island. It's easy to brush that to the side when we're dealing with foreign investment or, large corporations. But the effects that it has on our people and the benefits for our people needs to be more prioritized.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And I think quite often it's bypassed as a secondary, I think. And especially when we look at, for many years, and I think a lot of persons, that's all we know Sint Maarten to be. And of course, way back when, we were something else besides tourism. We had the Great Salt Pond to rely on. And when those things changed and evolved into tourism, and I think eventually you have to see tourism evolving,
right,
and also meshing with what we see today as well, with young entrepreneurs coming up and also developing a different aspect, also including tourism, but in a different aspect.
Yeah.
I would like to also give Mr. Early a chance also to speak a little bit about tourism, and especially from your experience as well, and how do you see it progressing?
Okay. Well, again, I came to Sint Maarten. I have to start with a little story so you understand it, where I'm coming from. I came to Sint Maarten. I was born in Curacao, but I didn't grow up there. So I grew up very English. And then I came back to Curacao at age 19. And then I came to Sint Maarten 1 year later, and I loved Sint Maarten immediately. And I lived here, I got married here, I made it my home, and it's still my home up until today, even though in between I did go to Holland to work and study. However, it was where I was introduced to tourism, because even up to the age of 19, I wasn't so sure what I was going to do. I was more into music and all of that. But being at Mullet Bay and listening to the sound of blenders, you would never believe it, mixing cocktails and all of that, and the tourists and all the happiness and all of that, you know, the passion, the excitement. Right there and then I knew that is what I really wanted to go into, tourism. Yeah. So what you find is that, let's come to to today. I always keep referring to tourism as our breadbasket, our winning horse, okay? Which is true. However, more so, tourism is our identity. In the world of industry and economic recognition, Sint Maarten is defined by tourism, is identified by tourism as the friendly island. We cannot step away from that. Tourism is who we are. Tourism is what we are. Besides, guess what? You never sell a winning horse. It may not be the way in these modern days, it might not be exactly how we would like it to be, but it is what we have, and it's always been winning for us, and it will continue to win for us. And that's how I see tourism.
But some people, to be a devil's advocate, so to say, some people, when you look at tourism now as well, and especially with competition amongst the other islands nearby, how do you see us coming back to being that number one tourism destination within the Caribbean? I think we're losing it, especially over the last 4 years, you know?
Definitely. You see, the pinnacle of tourism that we had 30 to 35 years ago, that's a thing of the past in the Caribbean. You understand? Tourism has become a very competitive industry in the Caribbean, especially with our neighboring islands like St. Kitts and a couple others. All right? So that is why we have to strive to get back on top, but not only get back on top, but stay on top.
Correct.
And there are different ways that you got to do it. Because you will notice that ever since, especially ever since Hurricane Irma, and then after the COVID, that numbers have declined. Yes. Let's be honest. Yeah. You could see that whilst everybody said, oh yes, tourism is a success, and so, no. I remember up until, let's say about, I would say 7 years ago, where we had like about, per year, average 2 million cruise ship visitors, and also extensive numbers in stayover. Yeah. Right now, that has declined to about 1,400,000, 1.4 million. So that's a 33% decline. 33% decline means about 700,000 visitors less.
So then the question would be, how can we compensate for the missing?
There you go. Thank you very much. Which is what I believe. One, it has to go two ways. One side is that we need more investors. We need more investment, because you must realize that years ago the population was smaller. Now that the population has doubled, probably even tripled. So therefore you mean more mouths to feed. More persons need jobs. And with what we have, it's not enough to produce or to maintain the population. Mm-hmm. So, and since it's the only thing that we have, we need to increase the number of rooms, increase in numbers in all the different areas where we do our tourism thing, so to speak. We need to do whatever it takes to increase the number of visitation of cruise ship passengers. You understand? But at the same time, what tourism was and the expectation of guests, visitors was 35 years ago, it's not the same anymore. Guests have become, their expectations are higher and they become very more demanding.
Correct.
And so therefore, education
Correct.
is where I think we need to head. Tourism education, hospitality education, proper training of those who have to maintain the workforce.
So we can switch into, like, say, medical tourism, educational tourism, those kind of pillars.
It still remains tourism no matter how you look at it. Yes, you have different diverse, sources of tourism, but it still remains tourism. And one thing remains key. The expectations will always be there.
Correct.
tourists, regardless of what they are, whether they're sports tourism, medical tourism, and all of that, they will come with expectations of
Correct.
today.
Correct.
And we need to be able to cater to those expectations.
So, Felicia, I would like to know, also give you the word to, what's your vision? How do you see it when we see now a new approach when it comes to maybe tourism, or maybe minimizing tourism in a sense, to then focus at a different approach as well?
The way I see our tourism product as the only pillar of our economy, again, as I said, I know it's vital. It is never going away. We should have it. And as my colleague was talking about, the need to make it more robust.
Correct.
The how you go about it, I think, is really important for the betterment of St. Maarten's community. So when you talk about we need to increase the rooms, we need to increase. So, but what we have to be very careful of, and I'm sure you would agree, is that in our efforts to increase, that we don't give away too much. Because one thing I would notice in St. Maarten, it's a small island, and then St. Maarten is a tiny part of that small island.
Yeah.
So our resources are incredibly limited. So if we're going to talk about increasing our tourism product, then we need stewardship in place. We need our government to make sure that as they strive to increase and better our product, that you don't leave people behind, that you take into account things like climate change and the effects that has on Caribbean nations in particular. Whether that's the building codes, when we have hurricanes, we have to take into account our ecosystems. That's a fight in St. Maarten. I think we can all agree that we've lost a lot of our ecosystems. When we're talking about wildlife, we're talking about preserving things that make St. Maarten uniquely St. Maarten, that tourists want to see. Because another thing I would say is, as you know, our tourists that come to St. Maarten get older, the younger ones grow up, then they're the ones that's coming. Younger generations are a little more environmentally conscious. Mm-hmm. They are more concerned with authentic experience. So we have to be careful with the push towards that I see towards a kind of like a mass market type of tourism that does not emphasize enough of our heritage, our culture, our environment, because the environment is a large part of why people come. If we lose it, then we get tourists that are more environmentally conscious. They'll make different choices.
Correct.
They'll go to different places, and then that industry that we rely so much on would still be damaged.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced that there is a real vision in place for how to develop St. Maarten's tourism in a sustainable way that looks after our environment, and in so doing also looks after our communities.
Correct.
And another thing I'd like to add is when we talk about needing to increase the tourism product, I think one way that we can do that, even without necessarily increasing visitors, is to try to plug the holes where our tourism dollars leak out of the economy. Because I know in the Caribbean, the majority of money that a tourist will spend on the island does not stay in that economy. When our accommodations and stuff are owned by multinational corporations that are in places like the US or Europe, a bulk of that money leaves the island.
Yeah.
So how do we mitigate that? Because that in itself will increase our revenue and also help our people to benefit more economically, while still trying to balance between increasing our tourism but not increasing it so much that it becomes over tourism.
Correct. So it's kind of like the approach St. Bart's took as well, where they're not looking really at the quantity but more the quality of tourism that they receive. I think what you mentioned as well too was we have to be careful not to lose the uniqueness of what St. Maarten is and what St. Maarten still has that we can offer these tourists. Because why come to St. Maarten if Anguilla offers the same thing and maybe less traffic there and so forth. I think another thing that we have to be careful at, and I think when we mentioned that we need more investors, we need to specify what kind of investors, because sometimes, especially locals, we get a little nervous when you hear investors, especially the foreign investors, because then again, it feels like we're giving away a part again of St. Maarten that should belong to the locals and can be. I think Anguilla has that you have to partner up with a local from Anguilla if you're a foreign investor to be able to keep some of what Anguilla is still within the Anguillian people. I think St. Maarten also, we need to be careful and make sure that we don't lose St. Maarten in that sense, and we need to ensure that the local community benefit from anything that has to do with tourism on the island as well.
Yes, because as we give away, we have to benefit. So we don't want to go either further down the road, years down the road, and look at all we've lost in terms of the land scarcity. Because there isn't much, right? On such a small island, the square footage isn't much. The more we give up to tourism projects, the less land there is for housing and all that stuff. So we don't want to look at what we've lost and then think, oh, well, we haven't gained in equal measure. That's an issue that I have. When we talk about our growth. This is why if we're going to endeavor to grow our product or modernize our product, it has to have a plan. It cannot just be investment for investment's sake or growth for the sake of growth. There has to be some idea of what kind of outcome you're looking for. And again, the people on the island need to be centered in that vision.
Correct. And I think it's involving them and also communicating to the public as to what the plans are. Where do we want to see St. Maarten in the next 10, 15 years from now, and have them be part of that journey, instead of, okay, this is what's happening tomorrow, Before I move on to Mr. Early to also add to the conversation, I would just like to remind the listening audience out there that we are live and you are able to voice your opinions as well as to tourism on the island. Where do you view it? How do you see it? Pros and cons. Please, you can call us at +1 721 543 7961. So it's +1 721 543 7961. Mr. Early?
Yes. All right. I do agree with a lot, if not all, of what you say. However, basic principle. The way you run your house is going to determine what comes out of your house. And that house, that tourism house, let's be honest, has not been run properly.
I agree.
We're talking about that we need to put, regulations and all of that in place. It's correct what you say. But we cannot just say, oh, well, we're going to do this. No. There has to be a plan. There must be a strategic plan that has to be put in place whereby you're going to base, especially now that we have had about 50 years of experience, we're going to build a strategic plan on the basis of the experiences that we've had and what went wrong when we were just looking, let's get as many as possible investors into the place. And we forgot somewhere along the line, either we forgot or somebody was asleep or something else was happening. We forgot to ensure to put certain regulations in place that would have avoided all of the problems that we are facing today.
Yes.
But it does not take away from the fact that we do need to increase our output, our numbers in our tourism product. Okay. And it's not necessary. Yes, we are a very small piece of land, but we don't necessarily have to go into more land. We just have to revamp what we had before. Now, I know this is a very favorite topic in the air, but some of us, we love talking about it. Some of us try to avoid talking about it. I'm going to stay in the middle by saying, look, when I came to St. Maarten, Mullet Bay it just wowed me. Yeah. Okay? And then when I left and when I came back about 25 years later, and I saw the same Mullet Bay, I just couldn't believe what I saw. And up until, it's been 20 years since I came back. And rather than something being bettered, I'm just seeing the place deteriorating. Yeah. So we do not need to go and look for new land mass. You understand? Mullet Bay is right there. Now, I know that there was a lot of issues going on regarding Mullet Bay.
Correct.
Which I don't really want to go into that right now, but what I would like to say on that is, look, I'm very practical in my thinking. You don't have to win the fight. You need to win the war. And most wars are not won by fights. Most wars are won at the negotiating table. Yeah. You understand? And so that's what we need to do. Because if you become hostile with someone, you understand, or with people who started the business legally, you understand? People didn't come in here and take. That didn't happen. I would quicker say if any taking was done, then that taking was done because they were allowed to take, or somebody was not standing the guard. But I do believe that we can look in other directions, but I do believe that the biggest asset St. Maarten has to make the change, to better our tourism product, is Mullet Bay. We can start small little things here and there, but that will not do what it takes. We need to sit and work that Mullet Bay problem out, not by being aggressive or anything. Because listen, business people, they invest. They naturally seize opportunity. Opportunity is what business people are looking for. Even if they have to be cold and callous sometimes, their aim is to make money, and most times at any cost. That is a fact that we can't get away from. To append to that trend of thought, I say this: the current owners, whoever owns Mullet Bay, didn't just walk in here and take what they wanted. They legally negotiated and acquired, while those who were elected to protect the patrimony of the country, they are the ones. They were either asleep, or they turned a blind eye for whatever reason, or something else that we haven't figured out up until today. So, what I say to this is, stop the hostility, the accusations and the finger pointing, and sit at the table with the right persons, and negotiate. Chastisement and condemnation should not be in the vocabulary of that negotiation. Just keep the big picture in mind and focus on the end goal and negotiate towards that, not sanctions and retribution. Because every time over the past 4 years I hear about Mullet Bay, man, there's so much element of retribution and all of those things. And I believe that's not the way. You don't put out a fire with fire. Yeah. You put it out with water.
Yeah. But and that's what's important with the full aspect of it is, who do we entrust to sit on any table to negotiate? Right now we're talking about Mullet Bay, the whole Inya saga, you know, but it's also what kind of leadership do you want to have? Which party would you entrust? And if you look at those persons representing the parties, do you trust them to sit on that table? You know, and quite often then people also say, and negotiations with the Dutch as well, because it goes hand in hand, especially when you're looking at the financing aspects of it. But yes, but to go back to also to tourism as well, that's one aspect that we got to look into. But also we need to look at, I think Felicia also mentioned it as well, that, you know, we have to just be careful as well as to the approach. And there's where it comes, you know, having the persons there sitting on that table with knowledge and with a goodwill and knowing what can benefit the country at large, you know, and not giving away the country again to so many that our locals are now left with our hands in their pockets and looking at the foreigners kind of benefiting from what's there, you know?
So let's learn from our mistakes. I would say let's learn from our mistakes and let's do what we call strategic planning, because I do believe a lot was done without planning.
Yes.
Proper strategic planning, that element was missing. And we are a lot wiser now concerning world issues, climate issues, and so forth than we were 40, 50 years ago.
Yep. No, definitely. And we'll continue this conversation. We just have to take a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Announcing the St. Maarten Hospitality and Trade Association in-room hotel book always available in hotels throughout the island. Visit St. Maarten is your complete guide to dining, shopping, history, and culture, and activities on the friendly island of St. Maarten. From the top-rated restaurants to the best beaches and great tips on where to find the best buys and one-of-a-kind gifts. Visit St. Maarten has it all. Go to visitstmarten.com, the SHTA's official consumer website, to find out more. Visit St. Maarten Special Shopping and Dining Guide and handy maps are available at your hotel front desk and in your hotel room. Check out the Visit St. Maarten map. Visit St. Maarten, the book that explores the heart of the island's culture. For more information or advertising, or to be recommended by the SHTA, call 721-542-0108. Download the Visit St. Maarten app now for all the visit information at your fingertips.
For every story we tell on NPR News, we ask what we know and what we don't. We tell you what we know, and we're frank about what we're still learning. Be informed. Listen to NPR News every weekday.
And welcome back. Of course, this is You Are St. Maarten, live on Mix 94.7. Welcome back to the conversation. I have with me today Mr. Early Charlemagne and Miss Felicia Brooks. You know, and the discussion today is about tourism and seeing how that goes and where we want to go based on that. If you want to have a voice and want to call in as well, you're welcome to. The phone number here is +1 721 543 7961. Once again, it's +1 721 543 7961. Miss Felicia?
Okay. One thing I've been thinking about, and I've mentioned this before, is my feeling of how important it is to add some diversity to St. Maarten's economy. We focus completely on tourism, you know, as you were saying. That's what we have. That's kind of it. But I think diversifying away a little bit actually would make our tourism product stronger, because it then makes us more resilient to shock, because the tourist industry is one that's very vulnerable to anything that stops travel, as we saw in 2020.
Correct.
As we saw in 2017. As we have experience, and we have to keep rebounding, and it includes a lot of borrowing. It puts us in more debt because our economy is not resilient enough to withstand those shocks. How do you feel about that?
Well,
I'm waxing early.
you know, anything you want to develop, you have to think of quantity, because that brings the dollars. And yes, of course, you need to think of quality. So while I'm talking about quantity and you were talking about quality, we're on the same team. So the two come together. The two are going to come together. But you see, the thing is, I'm looking at where we were. I'm looking at the decline and what we need to do to get the numbers up there to bring in the income that we need. Because if you look, St. Maarten has about 60,000, our population is about 60,000. If you multiply that by the number of dollars that is needed annually to support the population, you will come into numbers that will make you realize, listen, we need to increase the income.
Correct.
You understand? So that is why I'm looking at, okay, without impacting too much on the whole island, but especially one area, that is where what brought me to the Mallet Bay aspect. I don't really want to get into Mallet Bay, but I'm just looking at the landmass, the one area, what it was before, and it just needs to be pepped up again. I mean, I'm saying it very simply, but the kind of idea that I have in my head, this is something that could bring about 2,000 jobs, because Mallet Bay can easily take 3 hotels of 300 to 400 rooms. And 300 to 400 rooms, if you do the maths and using industry statistics, it means about 2,000 jobs. So I look at it that way. Then I also look at the fact that it will also impact how you call it, we say in Dutch, nevenactiviteiten. So activities that has to do with the industry, where you probably create another 1,000 jobs in restaurants and tour guiding and other types of business like the taxis and all of that. All of that is increased. It means more income. Now, of course, there must be a unit that will look into the quality.
Correct.
You understand? So I'm not moving away from the quality.
Yeah.
I definitely think the quality is just as important as the quantity, but we cannot say, well, focus on the quality and the numbers fall back. No, we have to pay attention to the numbers, because as I was talking about the cruise ships earlier, that's 700,000. If you multiply that by just $50 spending per person, that means we've declined with about $35 million annually in income.
Mm-hmm.
That has to mean something.
Correct.
I'm not saying go crazily and get it back and more without taking quality into consideration and control. No. We will put all of that into place.
Yep.
You understand? But we need to do something, because right now, the dollars are not there.
And as I listen to you two, and you make some valid points as to a vision and seeing job opportunity.
Yes.
I think we need to also make sure that the vision goes beyond just the building, because we see it quite often happening. We've seen it with the hospital, that we're praising a foundation, but yet we haven't looked at 10 years ago what kind of scholarships do we send out to ensure that our locals and our local students get that opportunity to come back home to go into, well, in that case, the medical industry, but when we're looking at the tourist industry, to ensure that we have tour guides that are from here, that we have persons in the restaurants, owning restaurants, that are from Sint Maarten, quite often, and we see it. I mean, just go down to Simpson Bay Strip. You see it. How many locals do we see there that are really benefiting from those tourist dollars that are entering, and based on it being so foreign oriented, how many of those dollars actually stay on the island? So those are the things we need to ensure that when we look at a vision as into increasing our tourism industry, but it needs to go beyond just a building and making sure that it benefits the locals who are living on this island.
Yes, you're so right with what you just said here. Because when I go down to Simpson Bay, I pass through Simpson Bay, and I look at it, yes, the businesses, 99% or 98%, but up in the 90s, do not belong to locals. It's all about, it's all by expats.
Correct.
And I'm saying, what is it that they're doing that we can do? So I don't think it's the lack of our ability to do it. I think that there is something, some kind of mechanism that's making it work that way.
But I think
but what often happens is if the local population does not have the capital to invest, to create business, then the door is wide open now for that investment to come from outside. And one thing we see over and over again is our governments incentivizing foreign investment, but that same kind of priority and investment does not go towards empowering local businesses. No. That would help also increase our tourism revenue in two ways, because again, when I was talking about that leaking of money out the island, that would help to stop that. Plus it empowers our people in our communities to become owners. This is something that I think we need more of in Sint Maarten, is our people need to own things.
Yes.
And that's where you see real prosperity. Now, not everybody is an entrepreneur, and no, that's true. But we need to really embed that culture back into the Caribbean, because entrepreneurship is a very Caribbean thing. But I think in our course of developing our island and pushing for progress, we've lost that ownership.
Yeah, but I think that's based on what you're saying as well, and also the foreigners having that monetary value to be able to invest into this tourism industry that we have, and taking advantage of the system we have in place and the governments that we had in place as well, that assisted with these things and putting down our locals as well. We've noticed a lot more of local persons moving away from the tourism industry and looking at a different pillar to be able to sustain themselves.
Listen to him, yeah.
You know? So it's how do we mesh the two? How do we bring it back together that we encourage our locals to be that tour operator, you know, to be owning a restaurant.
Or accommodations.
Or accommodations, you know. We
Yeah.
have another Airbnb, but that's also limited to who...
To sustain the industry.
No, exactly. So those are things we need to look at and encouraging and, as you say, Felicia, empowering our own to be able to do these things.
You see, the unfortunate thing, the St. Barts was mentioned a little earlier.
Yep.
The unfortunate thing for us here, St. Barts and other French territories enjoy something that we don't enjoy. They've got France.
Yeah.
They've got the feast, and they've got all the other, how must I call it, organizations overseas in Europe that can fund and are willing to fund serious projects even. But we don't have that here on the Dutch side. If we have to do anything, we will have to do it on our own. And that's where you need, the small man can't do it on his own, because he doesn't have that mechanism in place to get it done. So that's where the only mechanism we have is the government.
Yeah.
And so the government needs to start thinking on that level, which is what you just said, Felicia, needs to put things in place whereby the local man can walk into whatever institution that is put into place and say, look, I have a good idea. I want to do this, that, and that, and put a good business plan on the table, and he gets the kind of support. Now, I have to say, there are some efforts in that direction, but I've had experience, the feel of those efforts, and those efforts, without mentioning names, are so bureaucratic that by the time the small man gets to hear all what he has to do, what he needs to do, and what he needs, all the demands, he just gives up and just forget about it.
Yep.
Because it's just very demanding of him. You have not prepared the people to think on that level, to operate on that level, yet you're going to put those demands for them so that you can now come in and give them what it is that they need to become successful entrepreneurs. I think more emphasis needs to be put not on bureaucracy, but listen to the man when he comes to you with his idea. Yep. Listen to him, feel him, and guide him to get where it is he's heading for, rather than to criticize or stand up on a high level and say, well, you need to meet this and that and that and that condition, and things that a man doesn't even understand.
But you said something interesting as well. You said when you look at St. Bart's, they have something we don't have, is France. Mm-hmm. But even with France, you got to have a vision.
Yes.
And they had that vision. Where we were lacking is continuation of a vision, I think. Mm-hmm. I think our vision was in tourism-based, driven. Mm-hmm. And at a period of time, we lost that vision along the way, and we got blurred. Yes. So what we're seeing right now is the results of that blurred vision, and not having the correct persons in office to realize a vision or realize what you have there. And even so, now that it is blurred, and when we see how we can go from a tourism industry and that pillar and losing it almost after COVID, we need to have persons in there that realize, listen, tourism is important, but we have to have something to fall back on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think when Felicia mentions that as well, that yes, we can see tourism as important, which it is, we need to also encourage other means to sustain ourselves in case of anything, that we are even stronger than before, because seeing the vision, but even going beyond what the vision was, and that it means going beyond just tourism as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe in what you're saying. It makes sense, but I try to simplify things, and the simplicity by which I look through this is like this. Yes, we can diverse, but a while ago it was said that we are limited in landmass. So whatever it is we want to bring new, the landmass is already critical, to be able to do it. right? So that's another thing we need to look at in our strategic planning. Okay, that's one. And secondly, again, from what I said at the beginning, you know, I was born in 1954.
Correct.
And at this point in time, to go change my identity, which has worked for me to make me early who I am, early Charlemagne, you know, that is a hard choice and probably not the best choice to make.
But
so what I'm saying is, tourism is our identity.
Correct.
And that has worked for us for the past 60 years. And it's not doing too bad, but it's not doing as excellent as it could do.
Exactly.
So we just need to, you know, fix it back, put it back in place, modernize it, train people, and all of that, you know, and come out winning. Today someone said to me, I think it was you, in an earlier conversation, you know, when I said that tourism is our identity, a person said to me, actually tourism is our heart.
Yes.
It's our heartbeat. Man, are you going to change your heart? I don't want us to change our heart.
Yeah,
or
we're not
play
saying
with our heart too
No,
much.
correct.
Make our heart work.
Not about
Correct.
changing, because tourism will, as I said earlier, will always be a vital part
Correct.
of St. Martin's economy. But I think, and I'm sure you'd agree, because you have already that need to have other things in our economy to sustain our people. And when you spoke about the scarcity of our land, so if you want to develop new industry, but this is where, again, we have to take what we have. For example, we have all of these sport fields. We take those. We do something with those. We also have an infinite space, and that's the online space.
Correct.
That's a whole entire industry that especially youth and young adults would be very tapped into. In the world that we have right now, everything is interconnected and global because of our access to the internet. When I talk about diversifying St. Martin's economy to add to our resilience, not to replace our tourism,
Correct.
but to add to it,
Okay.
I'm thinking more of exploring that industry, because I feel like the online world here in St. Martin is an untapped potential that could create a lot of opportunity for youth and young adults to do different things. And some of those things would even intersect with the tourism industry.
Correct.
Because what I want now is for our young people to not only use the internet to purchase things, but to be the producer of goods and services as well. So that's what that illustrates is that we need new ideas and new ways of thinking when we encounter, when we come up against, what can we do for St. Martin's economy, because tourism is the only thing. It isn't. It is the main thing. It is an important thing. It's always been vital to the Caribbean. People have always wanted to come to the Caribbean to experience the beaches. And when I was in university in the US, they always would tell me, if I was from St. Maarten, I wouldn't be here. They would always say that, right? Because you always have this dream of this tropical destination. But we need to preserve it. And by realizing the importance of tourism, but also realizing the importance of adding to our resilience, that's one way to preserve our community, our island, our culture, our heritage, while still having that product for people to enjoy.
And I think that's basically what URSM is all about, is combining and finding different means to ensure the sustainability, not only of tourism, but also other potential avenues that can help sustain this country of ours. And nobody is looking, well, at least not URSM, we're definitely not looking to replace tourism in any means, because we know it's important. But even in your body, you know, you have different organs. You know, you have your main organ, but then you have your other organs as well that help the body go.
The body.
You know,
Yeah.
and you need all of them to work together to be able to live a healthy life. And I think that is basically what we're doing. We're looking how can we add certain elements
To make it more sustainable.
exactly to make it more sustainable.
Well, I think sustainable is the key word here. And I will agree with that 100%. However, there are a couple of things I would like to say. One is that if something is, you see, if tourism was working very good for us, I would say let's put our focus on other activities. But I'm saying right now, tourism has suffered a serious blow.
Correct.
And tourism is responsible for 90+% of our economy, our livelihood. And I'm saying our efforts, our main efforts, need to be put in there. Yes, we can look at all the other activities that we could do and we should do, and to make it a lot more interesting, if I for loss of other words. But again, I want to keep the emphasis on tourism, because that is the winning horse. That is the thing. If you fix it, it immediately puts you on top. Anything else that you put emphasis in, it will work. It can work, but it'll take us up step by step by step by step. And right now, we need a rigorous turnaround.
And based on what you just said, and that's why it's so important that when election comes, we elect a party like the URSM there that will put a competent person in that seat as a minister of TIAT to be able to focus on that, you know.
Yes.
But USM is also focused when we have that mandate in Parliament and we can choose as to which ministers we would like to see, that we also put a competent person there when it comes to the Ministry of Education, Youth, Culture and Sports to also build those other needed elements, you know, to support what is happening in this country.
Well, since 2015, when I came back to Sint Maarten, I came back in 2003, and I saw some of the challenges that were there in terms of tourism. And Hurricane Irma did give us a serious beating, and also COVID. But even if that did not happen, I could have seen that the path that we are on, it was leading to a decline in tourism if we didn't do something about it. So around 2015, I started putting certain things into place, certain trainings and so forth. As a matter of fact, I feel proud to say here today that I did approach one of those NGOs with a program through a platform. The platform is the foundation that I work with. And we were able to offer, I'm giving you the short version, we were able to offer marginalized persons, disenfranchised persons from, let's say, high school dropouts, early pregnancy and so forth, hunger, people with challenges. We're able to start with a pilot program where we did a program for in hospitality training, and we trained those persons. And those persons for 6 months, after 6 months of training in customer service gold, in restaurant server, and a lot of other things. But we also trained those students in some other stuff like personal development concepts such as self-esteem, morals and values, knowing your worth, and self-representation, all of these. And we saw such a change in these persons over the 6 months. And then we concluded with a 1 month training at various hotels. And amazingly, the hotels were so happy with those persons. 7 out of 10 got jobs immediately after their training. And I'm saying that's the kind of things that we need to be doing. Right. You understand? The other 3 who didn't get jobs because they're doing, well, not that they didn't get, but they rather do something else. And right now, for instance, and it's something that I noticed when I was working in Phillipsburg, the way information about Sint Maarten is being disseminated, to tourists. Tourists, as far as the tourists come, when they reach Sint Maarten, anybody they see in front of them is a Sint Maartener. So they'll walk up to the Sint Maarten and say, "Oh, what's this? How do I get to that?" And woe be unto us Sint Maarten when they ask that question to the wrong person. People who have not been trained, people who have other priorities in their head. They came from overseas.
But we hear those stories all the time, unfortunately, when our tour bus drivers are giving tours, and giving the wrong history.
Wrong history and all of that. So I started something, I call it Sua Liga Tour Guide, whereby we, I would like to train persons in upholding safety. The safety of the tourists, the visiting tourists, and also the general safety. Want to teach them how to give quality and proper information to tourists when they come here, how to enhance enhance the experience of the tourists when they come here, because that's what they come here for. They come here for an experience. So I'm saying, besides the building of hotels and all of that, bringing more rooms, we also need to work on our manpower. We need to work on our human resource with proper training and all of those things. So these are the kind of things that will better our tourism industry, and we start seeing the kind of economy that we would have liked to see and we want to see in St. Martin.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I'm really liking the conversation we're having this evening as well. I think it's nice to hear the balance and the perspective, of the generation that's been experiencing it for many years, but also a new generation that's up and coming, and seeing how can we diversify and add on to what we already have. Seeing that we have a few minutes left, I would like to give Felicia the mic for a few minutes, and anything you would like to say or mention, the mic is yours.
I would say it's clear that what it always comes back to is our people. So as you were just talking about earlier about training and giving them opportunities that they did not have before. And then they succeeded, right? And I'm coming from the perspective of wanting to make sure that our young people have as much diverse opportunities as possible in our tourism industry, outside our tourism industry. What it always comes back to is our communities. And that's what concerns me about, not about tourists coming to the island, not about tourism as a concept or industry, but about how it is implemented, how it is negotiated by our government representatives. That's where the contention is for me. Because if we have good stewards in place, then that tourism product will benefit our island. It will benefit our communities. We will see the money from it, so that our lives are actually bettered. If our lives are bettered by this product, it can only take us forward. I want to see St. Maarten people be more owners. We are already stakeholders in tourism, but I want our power in that area to really increase. And the only way that can happen is if we have a plan in place for how we want our development to go and what we want our island to look like and what we want tourism to do for our people.
Very nice said. Very nicely said. Mr. Early, any last closing remarks?
Yes, mine will probably be a little bit lighter. But honestly speaking, the URSM, what we say is that it's time to walk a new street. Okay. We have to start walking a new street. And in order to walk a new street, you have to change the guard. Changing the guard means, say, the persons who have been there for the past 4 years especially, and probably a few years before that, they have not done it. So on that note, what I would like to say is, when I came back to Curacao, I had forgotten Papiamento. I was 19. But there was an artist called Makai Prudencia, and he used to sing a song, but something about the melody of the song, I loved it. And it's only when I learned Papiamento I understood what it meant. And I want to share this with you. I'm not a good singer, but I'm going to sing it for you. All right? It went like this. I remember him singing, Mita vai cambia mi vida, tene mi promesa, mi tabata robes, mi tabata robes, mi tabata. What this literally means, now that I understand Papiamento, what it means is, I'm going to change my life and keep my promises from now on. I was wrong, and I was so wrong. So what, and I'm not talking about me sitting here early, I'm talking about the persons who have been in charge for the past 4 years and probably beyond that. You understand? Many of those who have been sitting in government for the last 4, 10, probably even 12 years should be lined up on stage and have them sing that song. Because you know why? They have failed St. Maarten miserably. Yep. That's why we are in the situation we are right now. It's all funny, it's all like a joke, but honestly, I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, correct. And now it's up to the people of St. Maarten, to make them sing that song.
To make them sing that song.
On January 11th, when they cast their votes and vote for a change and vote to have a real change for our country, And we're at a crossroads right now. And the URSM is doing everything within our powers to inform the people out there from what we stand and what we want to see, and we can only do it together with the people of St. Maarten. We want to thank the community of Sucker Garden who embraced us last week during our community walk. This weekend we will be in Point Blanche doing our community walk. So please look out for us there. And look out for the URSM. Visit us on our Facebook page, URSM at Facebook, and follow us and see what is happening. You can follow each and every candidate on the URSM slate, see who fits you, see who you can connect with, and make that change. Just vote for any of our candidates on the URSM slate, and a vote for us, for URSM, is a vote for change for St. Maarten, and a vote for a better future for not only yourself, but for your future generations and those generations to come after that. So I would like to thank Mr. Early Charlemagne for being here with me this evening, Ms. Felicia Brooks for also being here, and wishing everyone a pleasant evening further, and see you next week, same time, same place.